The danger of wholesaling real estate. What you're about to see could happen to you. Right off the bat, I have to warn you that what you're about to see can be your future if you so choose. The following are real examples of recent deals that are completed by wholesalers. The average wholesale profit nationwide is between $1,500 and $3,500 per deal. The ones you're going to see are significantly different. You will not be seeing any of these average profits in the following examples because I don't believe you can make a living earning $1,500 doing a wholesale deal, and also because most of those deals are done predominantly by assignment of contract or joint venture agreements. If you're doing wholesale deals for less than a $10,000 profit, you're effectively a bird dog for your buyers who are making 10 to 20 times what they are paying you. How do we make 10 to 20 times as much profit as the average wholesaler nationwide? Well, the reasons are simple, and in the following examples, you will get ideas of exactly what we do and how we do it. There's no reason you can't be doing what we're doing in any part of the country. Wholesale deal example number 1, a junker that we didn't expect to sell. What I've done in all of these examples is taken the HUD statement or the CD. You'll see a CD coming up. I've broken it into a top and a bottom half just to simplify it. We're not going to go through anything except the essential parts of what you need to see to understand how this wholesale transaction transpired. Purchase price $30,000. Again, this is the top half of the A to B HUD, bottom half of the A to B HUD. No earnest money deposit. Now, right now, you're saying to yourself, how can they do that? There's two ways to do that. The first is you find a closing agent who will take an earnest money deposit from you and not associate it immediately with a property. He gives you back an escrow letter that says you have an earnest money deposit on hand. He's holding it for you. The second way is simply to have your transactional funder, whoever you're going to use, fund 100% of the A to B side. A being the original seller, B you as the investor, and the end buyer as C. So the A to B HUD is the seller is selling to you, and you need $31,121.63 for this transaction. You call a transactional funder, he puts that much money up. They fund 100%. Your credit doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you're bankrupt. I don't know that it didn't matter if you were in jail as long as you could make a phone call and sign documents. Nonetheless, that's the top half. We've now purchased the property using other people's money, a transactional funder. Now we go to the sales side. On the left side of the HUD is always the buyer. They call it the borrower. On the right side of the HUD is always the seller. The previous A to B HUD, you the investor were the buyer. Now you're the seller. You sold the property for $90,000. If you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, they paid $30 and you sold it for $90? Yes. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about it. As a matter of fact, there is a video in the other part of my channel that I interview the two students who did this transaction. They will tell you in detail what they did and how they did it. And it starts out with, how did you find the deal? You did it in a very special way. How did you do it? Driving for dollars. Like that's 100 years old. Yeah, but it still works, and that's only the first part. If you drive through your neighborhoods, you'll see possibly hundreds of abandoned properties. How do you go from there? This is the bottom half of the B to C HUD. Notice that the buyer put up an earnest money deposit of $5,000. You're always going to have your end buyer put up more money than you put up. In the case he doesn't come to closing, you're going to get his earnest money deposit. You may lose yours, and the difference is your profit. So you don't even have to actually close on the property to make money. Here's where the transactional funds are paid back. Your transactional funder should not charge you an application fee, should fund 100% of the transaction. There should be no additional costs that were never disclosed in the beginning. When you do this A to B and B to C, cash transactions, what you're going to find out is that bottom line, the right-hand corner at the bottom, is your net profit. You've paid back the transactional funder. It's $50,911.78 minus $82.20. What's the $82.20? In this particular case, because the price of the property was so inexpensive, we decided to go ahead and close on the A to B leg and not sell it yet, advertise it. Why? I've talked extensively about what are called black hat wholesalers. As soon as they see a property come out on another wholesaler's list, they go directly to the seller and say, you know, that guy Dave Dinkel's a fraud. He doesn't have any escrow deposit. He's not going to sell your whatever they say. And oh, by the way, we'll give you a higher price. This results in your seller pulling back and saying, I changed my mind, I'm going to stay in the house. Not so. They're taking $1,000 or $5,000 more from a black hat wholesaler. So we had some expenses in cleanup and various things, cost of holding the property. But the net effect is, after any expenses that we had, all expenses that we had, profit on it was $42,691.78. Driving for dollars. Wholesale deal number 2. Needed to double close, so seller didn't know what the student resold it for. When I saw this transaction, I said to the student, why don't you assign it? This was the answer. Don't want the seller to know what I sold it for. Top half of the A to B HUD. Purchase price $185,000. Every one of these deals you're going to see, except for one, had no money out of pocket from the investor, the wholesaler, my students. How can they do that? Transactional funding, very specifically. There's the purchase price. Bottom half of the A to B HUD. Oops, there it is. No earnest money deposit again. Now you're going to have people all around you say you can't do that. It's not a legal contract. We literally do a ton of these deals. We know how to do them. And in other videos that I have, you'll see exactly, as I said before, approach the escrow agent, ask him for an escrow letter, put the money in. I just did a transaction for $485,000 for a student. He put up no earnest money deposit at all. It happened to be a listed property. And he sold it for an $80,000 profit. No money in the deal. Why? Because I funded the amount owed on the A to B HUD as a transactional funder. There's what was needed in this particular transactional fund. $186,639.02. Now we get into what I call the money shot. This is the profit zone. Again, top half of the second leg or B2C HUD. Sold it for $210,000. Bottom half, again, B2C HUD. Earnest money from the end buyer is $6,000. You should get as much as you can, because if he defaults, even though he defaulted, you don't want to lose your earnest money deposit and not have enough from him. Some of what I call whale buyers, the guys who buy a lot of properties, are going to say, my reputation has preceded me. I don't put up those kind of deposits. Find another buyer. The stronger your buyers list, the more powerful you will be. There's the transactional funding being paid back at closing. There's the profit. Now, why did I mention that he should assign it? Because the profit's less than $15,000 on a property that's $180,000. And again, the reason he said is that profit, as relatively small as it is compared to the amount of the purchase price, would have bothered the original seller so much that he or she may not have closed. That's all in the mind, the eyes of the beholder. To us, that's a small profit, but to someone who's selling it and thinking maybe you're going to live in the house, or you're going to get something like 1% or 3% like a realtor works for tips, that number's pretty good sized. Don't worry about it. Use a threshold of whatever you want to use, but don't take the chance if you get over $15,000 or $20,000. An end buyer will say to you, I don't care. I love the price. The seller will say, I don't care if you make money, Dave. I love the price. But then when you get to closing, they each find out how much money you made for 20 minutes worth of work of driving to the closing and signing it. So please be careful. Don't lose the profit. Wholesale deal number 3. This one is extremely important. If you're a realtor, this is a trend that I'm financing time after time for brokers. Brokers have been in the business a long time, generally speaking. They have been beat to death by buyers, or they, trudge around from property to property. When the buyer finds something, he buys it from another agent. I like realtors because they buy probably a third of our wholesale deals. But here's where they've gotten smart. I think this has been going on for maybe a year and a half. They become the buyers. So here's a deal. A to B, top half of the HUD, $440,000 purchase price. $431,117.15 needed to close the A to B leg. Broker says, Dave, I don't have any money. Not uncommon. So as a transactional funder, I put that much money into the A to B leg. Now, did he make any money on this first half? By the way, here was a mistake, although it doesn't matter to me. He put up a $10,000 earnest money deposit. It's the mind of the agent. You got to have an earnest money deposit. But he's the buyer. But he still put up his own $10,000, which I understand he borrowed. So technically, he still had no money in the deal. Here's what every agent looks at when he goes to the closing. Second page, what's the commission paid? There it is. Now remember, the broker is the buyer. He gets the full commission. In this case, it was only 5%, but it's $22,000. So he's starting out with a profit of $22,000. But remember, he bought it and now he has an end buyer for it. So let's go to the B2C top half. Now this is a CD, specifically a closing disclosure. Looks different than the HUDs. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take you through it. Sale price $456,750. Below this, you're going to see a lot of credits and debits and various things. In this case, they're all going to be debits. Here's the next bottom half. And again, you're seeing a lot of debits to the buyer of the property. Now, the buyer's earnest money deposit is $5,000. What was his? He put up $10,000. So he's got this thing flipped backwards. But remember, we're dealing with a different mentality than a wholesaler mentality, an investor mentality. But he's trying to come over to our side, what I call the light side. Okay, so here's the bottom of the CD. This is the money shot. Oh, and by the way, he's made some commissions from the end buyer. How much? There it is, $36,600 in reselling the property. If you notice, there's two real estate commissions. There's a marketing fee of $14,600. So he's made $22,000, $36,600, and oh yes, there I am being paid back the original funding amount. And there is normally will be the profit. However, let's look at what the real profit on the transaction was. $14,180.79 is right above there. $22,000 on the first leg, $36,600 on the second leg, but he put up $10,000 earnest money deposit. So you have to subtract that, because in these proceeds coming back is included the $10,000 because it reduced his original amount of money to purchase it. Bottom line, $62,780.79 profit. No money in the deal. And if you're saying to yourself, well, he had $10,000 up, he borrowed at $10,000. Wholesale deal number 4, again, old-fashioned driving for dollars. The issue in these transactions and driving for dollars is not finding the houses. Depending on where you are, they're everywhere. It's finding the seller. Watch the video that I mentioned to you with 2 students talking about how they did that deal. They bought it for $30, sold it for $90. Top half of the A to B HUD, purchase price $57,500. Transactional funding needed $58,366.83. Oh, here we go again. No earnest money deposit. Now again, remember, they have an escrow letter with a closing agent. They use it over and over on every transaction. Or the transactional funder funds it on the HUD. Do not call your transactional funder and say to him, do you fund earnest money deposits? And generally, they will always say no. If you need the earnest money deposit, you don't have it yourself, then friends and family members are ones you have to look at. How much do you have to pay for a $1,000 earnest money deposit? You might have to split the deal, but after you split that deal, you'll never need them again. So here is the B2C HUD now. This is the top half. Sale price, $80,000. Bottom half. Oops, no buyer's earnest money deposit. This particular student got so excited that he didn't ask for an earnest money deposit, or frankly, the end buyer boondoggled him into saying, my reputation, whatever. He should have gotten an earnest money deposit, but it didn't matter because in this case, here I get paid back on the transactional funding. There's a net profit, $21,227 even. How can it be even? The closing agents play with pennies, so it comes out even. That's the only way I can tell you. Doesn't matter. Wholesale deal number 5 is a pre-foreclosure short sale. Now, for you guys who do short sales, you know there's a problem, and the problem is the lender that has to approve the discount that you're going to get off the principal amount and all the other additions, attorney's fees, and accelerated such and such, makes a decision. Very oftentimes, depending on how hot the market is, they'll send out an appraiser who never sees the inside of the house, almost never, and he just looks at his computer to see what the highest comps have closed at in a radius around the property, same square footage plus or minus 10%. He's going to come up with a number significantly different than what the value of that property is for you to be able to get it and resell it. So here's an example of a pre-foreclosure short sale. Now again, these numbers have been approved by the lender. Purchase price $95,000. How did we do that again? I've already told you the 2 ways you can do it. No earnest money deposit by student, investor, buyer. That's how much money I needed to close the transaction for the student, $98,676.76. Here is the B2C HUD top half. Sold it for $160. Bottom half of the HUD. Here it is again. No buyer's earnest money deposit. Do not do this to yourself, because if he walks away, you may be liable for an earnest money deposit that didn't show up on this HUD. Now, what's the profit? Now, this is very interesting. Shows here 147,946.26. That's wrong. What actually in fact happened is the B2C HUD was sent to me, and I said to them, you didn't subtract my transactional funding. They didn't send me a final HUD, but that's my transactional funding amount, $99,466.76. So the net profit on this transaction, these are all same day wholesale double closings, was $48,479.50. So wholesale deal number 6, another pre-foreclosed short sale. How do you find pre-foreclosures to do short sales? Any number of ways. They're published. You can buy a list of them. They're very easy to find. So here's the top half of the A to B HUD. Paid $71,250. Bottom half of the A to B HUD. Oops, there we go again. No earnest money deposit. If it's driving you crazy, I've told you now 3 times how to do it. And if you say to me, well, I can't get somebody to take an escrow letter, and I can't get a transactional funder to fund the... So what's your option? Friends and family members. Look, if you're looking at making money, you know when you get to this point how much money you're going to make. Show it to the guy who's going to lend you the money if you have to. If you have to, split the profit. That's the most expensive money in the world, but do what you have to do. There's a transactional funding amount. $71,879.85. B2C closing. This is the money shot, so to speak. Top half of the HUD sold it for $89,900. End buyers earnest money deposit $6,000. This is the way to do it. Transactional funding paid back $71,879.85. Boom, $15,583.78. Now that's a profit with no money in the deal. And how long does it take you to make a $15,000 income check? I don't know. For some of you, that's weekly. For some of you, that might be monthly. And for some of you, that could be 6 months. But the difference between the people that make that weekly and the people that make that in 6 months is only in the mindset of the people that do it. Frankly, real estate investing is pretty simple. It's got a lot of moving parts, but once you get those gears to mesh, you can reproduce these deals, I don't want to say incessantly, but time over time over time. Wholesale deal number 7, again, driving for dollars. Is it something that I tell students to do? What you have to do is incorporate it in your daily lifestyle. Whenever you go somewhere, drive the neighborhood where you're going. When you come home from work, drive a different route. When you go to work, drive a different route. Why bother with all that? Why? Well, I don't know. Let's see. On the first one I showed you was $42,000. Let's look at this one. Purchase price $60,000. This is a $10 earnest money deposit. If you say to yourself, that's ridiculous. There's no way in the world any agent in his right mind would allow a $10 earnest money deposit. Well, here's a little clue. We have students that have a niche in doing high-priced wholesale properties. Now, what's high-priced? Well, in California, it's going to be $2 or $3 or $5 million. Here in our area, it's going to be $700,000 to $1.5 million, $1.8 million. It doesn't matter. How much earnest money deposit do they put up? $1,000. And your head probably is, just exploded. Especially if you're a realtor and you're saying to yourself, no guy in his right mind or gal would ever take a $1,000 earnest money deposit. They do. Why do they? For various reasons which we show you how to do. Nonetheless, in this case, $10 earnest money deposit. Now, here's one of the ways to make additional profits on every deal you do. It says seller paid closing cost. Wow. How did the seller pay the closing cost? We asked them to. It's $5,000 credit. We didn't ask them to pay the whole thing. We just said we need a credit for $5,000 to close. VA and FHA do that all the time. Why can't you do that? There's no reason you can't. Bottom line, transactional funding, $71,177.74. Here we go. B2C HUD top half. Sold it for $129. Remember, driving for dollars. Bottom half, $1,000 earnest money deposit. If you put up 10 and you collect $1,000, you say to yourself, well, if they default, I made $990. Not enough. That should have been $3,000 or $4,000. Doesn't matter. This is how you learn. There I get paid back the transactional funding at closing. There's the profit. $56,939.29 less the $10 earnest money deposit. $56,929.29 net profit. Remember, these houses are not rehab. We don't go through a cycle of closing on them, carrying them with hard money, hoping and praying that somebody comes along and buys the sucker before we go broke. You're not going to bleed to death in these because your maximum risk, your maximum legal liability in a contract is the amount of your earnest money deposit. Read your contracts before you sign them, and it will say that. If it says something else, there's one bank in the United States that I have seen that has in their contracts that if you don't close, there's an additional liability, $5,000. They stuck it in there. So if you didn't read the contract, you didn't close, you could be risking $5,000. One of the things that I very oftentimes get on my applications for mentoring is I'm afraid to fail. I want my dreams to come true, but I'm afraid. Look, everybody has fears in life. You run a bigger chance of something happening to you getting in your car each day and driving than you do in real estate investing. So what about failing? Everybody fails. In real estate investing, when you see these deals happen, probably many have failed before they got started. And the reason is the people that tried to do them didn't know what they were doing, or they were doing them for too small a profit. You cannot make a living on doing small transactions. You do a $1,500 profit and you do 100 deals a year. That's $150,000. Now, if that sounds like an awful lot of money to you, I'm going to say, what if you got $5,000 in each of those deals? That's $500,000. What if you made 10? You've made $1 million. I've had a lot of wholesalers come to me and say, I did 110 deals last year, and I say, so what? How much did you make? Well, I made $75,000. Oh, that's sad. You worked yourself to death for, in our business, what's very little money. So what's the net outcome of what I've showed you so far? Deal number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Total profit $250,000, and the average wholesale profit per deal is $37,469.50. If somebody's listening that says, I don't believe it, that's your choice in life. I have every one of the HUD statements I showed you. Why are they blanked out? Because I don't want to have you find out who the buyers are, but I'm not going to give you a buyer's list outside of our area or in our area. It's not fair to the sellers, it's not fair to the students, it's not fair to the end buyers. My question that I ask so many times, and you need to answer it for yourself, is very simple. Why not you? The greatest advances in the world have happened because people just like you followed their passion. If you don't take a leap of faith and trust yourself, you may only have regrets, especially knowing that you could have done it. I know you can be a successful investor if you try hard enough and you do not quit. Follow me and join us so we can help you achieve your destiny by fulfilling your personal passion. It's a simple choice to take control of your fears and change your life forever, and now is the time to do it. You deserve it, so why not you?